Now this is how you crush former 5-time world champion Vishy Anand in just 28 moves. Who was the man to do it? Alexander Morozevich, just 17 years old when this game was played, and he had the white pieces here in this 1995 rapid play encounter. And shout out to ZZ Music for pointing this game out to me. So let's see what happened. We had e4 on the board, Anand goes e5, and now we get f4, the king's gambit. So Anand takes the pawn, and now we see bishop c4, the bishop's gambit here. Knight f3 is more common, and Vishy goes knight f6, the main response for black. And it looks quite provocative. You're hitting the pawn, but what are you doing after the pawn kicks on? Well, there's a couple of decent replies for black. One is to go d5, very common idea in these king's pawn structures. You counterattack the bishop. Another idea is to go knight to e4, again a common idea. So e5 kicking on, not the best. Knight c3 just defending the pawn was played, and now c6 from Vishy. He's preparing to go d5, set up the big centre. And by the way, if you want to learn more about the King's Gambit opening here or just any of your openings, Chessable is a great place to do that. I'm promoting their courses there at the moment because they've got this massive sale on, and if you use the link below, it's an affiliate link for this Epic Chess channel, then it also helps me out, which of course is hugely appreciated. So check out that one if you do want to get any of these openings brushed up on. Now after c6, we now had this bishop dropping back, preempting d5. Vishy cracks on. We now see takes. There's a lot of pressure in the center. Pawn recaptures, and d4 was played. So this is a bit of a problem piece now for white. Not easy to liberate that one, bring it back into the game. So black's already a little bit better out of the opening. Now bishop b4 from Vishy, so he prepares to castle the king, and he's also got ideas here of eliminating that knight and gaining good outposts here for both of his knights on these light squares. So knight f3 was played. We see this pawn not yet captured. White holds off, although it could have been captured on the last move. Both players now castle the king, and here Vishy chops. So he's giving up his bishop pair, but he does now get pressure on this pawn with queen to c7, and he holds this one on f4, meaning white can't actually recapture it straight away, has to spend some time. So queen e1 was played, good move, covers the c3 pawn, and there's also ideas now to bounce out here, support the bishop to recapture here. Knight c6 now played, and the queen bounces out. Now this knight c6 move, you can see there's ideas to go knight a5, sit on c4. It's a thematic idea in this kind of structure. Maybe this one comes to e4 one day. So this is why the knights are looking good here compared with the bishop pair, especially this bishop on b3. But after the queen bounces out, it's looking a bit scary around the king. So knight e7 was played instead, a good move, adds some defense to the king, and there is this journey as well that the knight can consider in future. We see that in the game. So the bishop takes on f4, the queen takes on c3, and now here we see this knight wanting to develop into the e5 square, but if you go immediately, well, you lose this pawn with check, not good. So after this move of queen c3, we see the bishop bounce back, evicts the queen, and then the knight lands on this nice outpost on e5. Knight f5 now played, picks up a tempo on the queen. Now this move looks quite natural, but you don't want to run into knight e4, so instead the queen came to f4 here, and now bishop e6 developed, connected the rooks. Bishop b4 was played to pressure that one on the f-file. It slides across here, and now we see a great attacking move from Morozevich. He really takes the bull by the horns here. What do you think he played? What's the best attacking move in this position? So this is where he goes pawn to g4. Vamos! He wants to checkmate that black king. Structurally, he is worse if this goes into this long grinding endgame. So the knight moves back to d6. Great remaneuver square. It can now look to come here. But after rook a to e1, bringing this one into the game, adding some more protection here, Vishy now goes wrong. So his best is knight to c4 here. Very simple idea. You're kind of squashing this bishop out. You're preventing c4. But after this knight comes into e4, Actually, it's a bit of a tactical liability there. How do you play here as white to continue this attack? So you maybe guessed it now with a couple of hints. The move to go is pawn to c4. Exceptional move because this is a pawn sacrifice. Now there's a threat to take here, of course, so you have to deal with that. Vishy captures, best move. But now the bishop drops back. This is the whole idea. Pressuring the knight on e4 and x-raying through it towards this pawn, towards the king. And it's not easy to deal with this. So bishop d5 looks very natural, for example, but it's not great. I mean, for one thing, you could actually give up this rook for 2 pieces here, like this, and this is slightly better for white, but even stronger is to actually eliminate this knight and then go g5. And without going too deep on the line, there are ideas of queen h4 threatening here, and if ever g6, well, there's this knight g4 idea coming into the weakened dark squares. So these are some of the kind of attacking ideas in the position. Bishop d5, not good. Queen b6 was the best move, and the computer gives this as zeros, but it's still very tactical and complicated. You hit this unprotected bishop. Also, this one's a threat with check. Computer says that taking here with the rook is the best line, and it gives it zeros. Okay, we won't go too deep. Vishy didn't go queen b6. He just dropped this knight back to f6, also trying to cover his king, but this is walking into pawn to g5. Very dangerous initiative now for Morozevich. Now, knight d5, technically best move, but once again, this attack just looks so scary on the king, and here you can even immediately take with the bishop. This is the kind of line you'd see, and then we see this pawn coming to g6 once you've eliminated that knight on d6. Now again, I won't go too deep. The computer finds some kind of amazing defenses here, but this is really scary to humans, especially in rapid. So Vishy wants no part of that one. He wants to block the h-file, so after pawn g5, he goes knight to h5 here. The queen is hit, moves to f3, then he goes g6 to protect that knight. But this is where Morozevich just comes crashing through the position. Can you find the hammer blow, the knockout kill, and can you see the follow-up moves as well, if possible? So the move that was played here by white is knight takes on g6, just clearing this e-file to open up the rook, ripping apart the king position. Really reminds me of a kind of Kasparov sacrifice. Now if you take with this one, this is pretty simple to understand. You win a bishop here. So the pawn recaptured like this. How do you continue the attack here? What would you play? Well, this is where you keep ripping things up. Bishop takes on g6, eliminating that final pawn, then the rook crashes through. So you've already got 2 pawns for the piece and this raging attack. There's a threat to take here with check. You're also attacking this piece twice. So Vishy finds this queen f7 move to try and cover everything all at once. But now we see this great move by Morozevich. Again, pause if you want to look for this one. Not an easy one to understand. He goes queen to d5. Now this is just a silent killer because you're introducing all of these threats down the diagonal. For example, rook takes g6 check is now a threat because the queen is pinned. Plus the queen is hit by the rook. The knight is hit 3 times now. So that's why we have knight f5 to try and cover off all the threats here. And now, how do you actually finish this in the most clean manner? And I'll give you a clue here. It's not rook takes on g6. While this does give advantage, after the knight drops back, well, you can kind of try and survive this position as black. I mean, white's clearly better. This rook c7 move, by the way, stops rook d7, hitting this one. Now, white's still a lot better, should win this, but okay, it's not so clean, it's not so over on the spot, as we saw in the game. How did Morozevich finish this one? Well, this is where he plays the final hammer blow, rook takes on f5, forces resignation. Why? Well, if the queen recaptures, this one's pretty simple to understand. You can go check here, king can come to g7 or h7, doesn't matter which one. This is actually a checkmate. You know, the pawn's hemming in that king. And if instead of taking with the queen, you take with the pawn, well, can you see the follow-up here to finish the game on the spot? So the move here is pawn to g6. and the queen just has nowhere good to go. It's getting forced off that diagonal. You're going to check the king. Say you come here, well, this is double check and mate on the spot, and there's really nothing better. Crushing game from Morozevich. If you want to see another fascinating game, then check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you again on a future video. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.